Hi folks, it's 2021 November and just harvested these medlar fruit. I've only got a dwarf tree, so not much fruit on there at the moment, and it's only a year or two old, so only got 3 this time, but hopefully a lot more next year. So we're going to give it a go of bletting, which is the process of just essentially allowing these to ripen off the tree. And they're rock hard now, but when they will soften, and that's when you can eat them in sort of 2 or 3 weeks time. So we'll look back at that shortly. This has been sitting here for not very long actually. The other one didn't. The other 2 haven't quite ripened yet, but you sort of see it is like a mushy. It was like a little mushy apple. Doesn't taste unpleasant, doesn't taste rotten. It's clean my teeth, so that will taste. Yeah, it's like it's nice. It's nice. It's not like super sweet. It's like mildly sweet. Not too tart. Like just a little bit of tartness. Maybe the texture is what I'm not so keen on, just very mushy, but if you sort of heated that up, it's a bit like a sort of stewed apple type consistency. And yeah, I'd eat those. Tons of them. And they're pretty big. I'd say they're about 45-50 mil across. This is absolutely crazy, the size of the figs this year. We've had this really weird year, super mild weather in November. Sunny rain, sun rain, almost every day. Look at the size of these things. They're almost like European sized figs. They haven't quite all ripened yet, but Jesus, give it another couple of weeks. Look, there's another one here. 2022, one of the weirdest seasons on record. I guess the next question is, what can we actually do with these medlar now? You got to be careful because I've only got 1.5 kilos, but I can actually just make the same stuff for all of the different recipes I've got. So one of them is medlar jam, one of them is medlar cheese, a little medlar tart, and fruit leather. But in each case, all I've got to do, the main thing is you've got these pips inside, quite large seeds, and you've got this slightly leathery skin, which you can eat, but not sure. You wouldn't want it for, like, say, for a nice clean jam, but if you were, not that fussed and you can cook up the skins, obviously that's probably where a lot of the goodness is. So anyway, what we need to do is we need to boil it down, get rid of all the seeds and any other bits you don't want in there, and strain it, and then whatever's left over, then we can make something out of that. So that's what we're going to do. We've got our medlar, just wash them, put them in a saucepan. Now we're going to add some water. I mean, I'm just going to take a rough guess at how much water to put in. I've put in boiling water because I just made a cup of tea, but it could be cold water. And then we're just going to mash them all up. And then we're going to add the rest of those on the other side. All that lovely mushy stuff. Right, let's get that on the boiling, on a rolling boil, and simmer it for a little while, and then we'll come back to you. Well, the World Cup's on, so you've got to be watching that whilst you're doing this, surely. So what I've done is it didn't take too long at all, because when they're bletted, that means, almost rotten. They're super soft anyway, so once you add a bit of water and you start heating it, it doesn't take long. But I've added enough water, I just kept adding water until it got to like a soup-like consistency. You can sort of see that. Right, so now I'm going to spoon it into the colander, and then we're going to work it through those holes to separate the seed and any hard bits of the lumpy skin through the colander. I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, this kind of does work. I had to thin it down a lot more though, because it wasn't making it through those holes, so I've added even more water. It's still pretty thick, but it's like a thick soup, still a thick soup, but not as thick as it was before. Anyway, you've got to mix that a lot to get that through the holes, and as you can see, it kind of just slowly smushes out. It's not the easiest way to do it, I can tell you that much. So I'm going to take you through a couple of other options for this, because obviously if you can do it every year, you want the easiest way to do it. Right, sieve works pretty well. I think it's just because you're able to force it through the holes quite easily. So just keep mixing like that, and you'll see it slowly disappear, and you'll end up with more and more skin and seed. So I like that method. See, it's all there coming off quite easy. That's quite easy. And everybody's got a sieve, so I would say that's better than the colander. Definitely. Right, let's try a couple more ways. Right, this is what is called a mouli. It's a French invention, I think. Certainly used in France quite a lot. And I've used this quite a lot with various other means of straining, or products that need straining, fruits that need straining. I think you have to fill it up quite a lot. Does help more. It takes a little bit of strength to do it. You see, it's doing it pretty quickly. No quicker than the sieve, I'll add. I definitely use this when I was experimenting with grapes. You know, you want to, if you haven't got a wine press, you want to get the juice out. Now the last way, I quite like this thing. It's quite classic, but I mean, it does work. It's called a chinois. Typical French name. Bit like the mouli, and it comes with this wooden pestle and a bit of garlic skin, which we don't want in there. Right, all you do is just go around like that, and quite frankly, I can already tell that is going to be more work than, I don't know, actually, they're all pretty good. I'd say the worst one's the colander, but they're all more or less the same, but certainly the sieve and the mouli is the quickest. So if you had any of these things, you can do this. I was just trying to sort of see if I could make it, you know, I'm always trying to make things quicker because I want to do all these things myself rather than buy it from a shop, so it's got to be quick. But yeah, that works all right. But for saving the mess and for having something simple at home that everybody's got, I would say go for the sieve, without a doubt. This is the end result. We've got about 1.35 kgs and about 1.2 litres of mush. Kind of reminds me of apple sauce when I've cooked down apples before, made apple compote. It's that sort of consistency. It's a bit gloopy. So we've gained a little bit of weight by adding the water, and we've lost a little bit by taking out the seeds and skins, but the main thing is, let's see what it tastes like. You know what, actually it's not half bad. When you eat the Medlars on their own, they don't have this intense taste. It's kind of, I think the texture is the most off-putting bit about Medlars. They're just still a bit mealy and mushy. But this is like, it's a bit like applesauce. It's like a sweet, yeah, it's just sort of satisfyingly sweet and creamy. You could eat that just as it is, even dollop that on you know, bread and stuff, just like a jam. So what's the next step? The next step sometimes is to process this with a muslin, right? So a bit of cloth basically, and what you're going to do is you're going to put that in a muslin, hang it up somewhere, tie it up, and then you let it drip into a bowl. So you just put a bowl there and you tie it up somehow above, and it will just drip down. And what you get then is that would be like it would keep all the thicker particles here and the finer stuff there, and then you turn that into jelly. I think this is what I've established. So there's a bit of a quirk here. When you look online, you get some recipes say add sugar to this now and turn that into jam, and some of them say you strain it and you turn it into jam. And I think the problem is in the States you use the phrase jelly as opposed to jam. We don't use that in the UK. It's jam, it covers everything. So I think what we're saying is that that's jam because it's not been processed as finely, and jelly is the stuff that's going to end up looking quite clear and translucent. But because I don't have a lot, I'm not going to bother, and it's not rocket science to work that out. All you do is you run that through there, leave it up for like 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it takes, give it a bit of a squeeze, and the liquid you're left over with, you then add sugar to that, and that's how you make your jelly. But I don't want that. I'm not even going to make jam. Well, I am, but I'm not going to can it. So next step, we're going to divvy this up. Some of it we're going to add a little bit of sugar to and make it into jam. Some of it we're going to just use as is and make a pie out of that. We're going to make those pies, like I said, as tarts, see what they're like. And some of it we're going to turn into fruit levers. So let's get cracking. Right, let's try the fruit lever. So on the left, I'm just going to do pure whatever you want to call it. Keep wanting to call it, I suppose it's pulp fiction. And you see there's a little lip there. That is sort of the height you want. Need a bit more than that. Okay, that'll do for a first attempt. So apparently fruit leather needs nothing, because you're drying it out. Remove that much moisture, it actually is going to preserve like that. But you can add spices, cinnamon, things like that. Lemon juice apparently will stop it going darker, and sugar you can just add for a bit more sweetness. So in this case I'm just going to try unadulterated. So let's see how that one goes. This one, I just got this chestnut puree I made with quite a bit of sugar in it. It was like a filling that was going in some biscuits, but essentially it's a load of sugar because obviously the chestnuts are sweet as well. So I'm just going to do a little experiment with this, just try and use it up and see how that works out. Chestnut and medlar. A little bit weird, but can't be that weird. A bit more. You're a bit heavy on the old chestnut. Just try a little bit, just for the sake of it. Yeah, definitely. So it's almost like vanilla-y. I mean, it's definitely pleasant. Not like super sweet, but yeah, it's like. I mean, I guess I might put vanilla in that, so that might be that might explain that. Can't remember now. All right, let's spread that out. Okay, that's that done. All right, wash my hands. Next up is going to be the tarts. I always did wonder why I kept these things. You've probably seen these ones. I think they're like dessert dishes. I mean, it's quite incredible how cheap things are these days. You actually get a whole dish free with a dessert, but hey. So I don't have a lot of this Medlar mixture left now, as you can see. So what I'm going to try and do is get at least 3, if not 4, tarts out of this, and then the last little bit to make Medlar cheese. So to make 4 tarts, I'm going to need 28 grams of butter, which I've got there. Okay, let's just zero that out. Then 40 grams of flour, plain flour. Okay, 16 grams of flour, sugar, I mean. So I'm looking at 56 on the clock. 57 that'll do. And then 15 grams, not 15 grams, cornstarch. About 6 grams of cornstarch. Slightly weird amounts, but it's because I've cut down a recipe that was meant to be for 10 of these things. Okay, 64 grams, that'll do. Vanilla. This recipe's crazy. You can't see this recipe. It's like, it says half vanilla, whatever that means. Well, I'm just going to put in half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then baking soda. It just says baking soda. So what do we recommend? Don't know. It's usually like a teaspoon, isn't it? So let's put in half a teaspoon or something like that. This is why I can't cook. They'll make it up. Right, salt. It's got to be a pinch, isn't it? A pinch of salt. Or a little sprinkle. That'll do. Don't taste too salty. Right, that lot. Let's mix that up, I guess, and then fill it with jam. Unfortunately, that recipe was just awful, but that's fine. I fumbled my way through. So I've blind baked the 2 dishes. I say 2 because I was meant to do 4 and there was nowhere near enough pastry, so we've done 2. So I want to do one where it's just the Medlar compote, whatever you want to call it, neat. We're going to see how that turns out. And then the other one is going to be with sugar. So when you make Medlar jam, typically it's half the weight of the jam compote with sugar. So what I should have actually just done was measure that and then work out what the weight is. We can do it on the other one just roughly and add a bit of sugar just to sweeten it. I don't like to add as much sugar as I usually have in recipes anyway, so let's just guesstimate here and just mix a bit of sugar in. So it's probably something like that. So you just do it to taste, really. Probably want one more. Okay, fill that one up. Okay, that can go back in the pot. Got my two lids. It's going to be quite difficult with this paper on it. Maybe I can take that out of the paper, pop it back in, and then it shouldn't stick. Anyway, we'll pop the lids on those, put those back in the oven and cook those, and then we'll get on with the next one. Right, those are ready to go in. It did at least tell me how long to bake them for and at what temperature, so it said 180 Celsius for 30 minutes, so we'll pop those in and then give them a taste test. So it depends on the fruit lever, but I'm going to go for about 140 Fahrenheit, which is about 60 Celsius for 6 to 8 hours. So let's put it on 8 hours because I found this doesn't always seem to perform as well as I hope. So that's my combo one at the bottom, the chestnut puree with the fruit leather, and this is the pure fruit leather at the top. So going to go, yep, we're on 135, so let's just bring it around to 140. It tends to sort of vary from about 125 to 150 Fahrenheit for fruit leather, so I'm sort of hitting in the middle of the range because I've never done this before. And we're going to go for 8 hours. Alright, so just put the front on that and then we'll have a look at it again tomorrow. Right, not exactly what I planned, but here's the first time. So that's the unsweetened one. I mean, flavour wise it's fine, and you can almost use that almost as a cracker, I reckon. That'd work with a bit of cheese, I reckon. But it wasn't meant to be with a bit of cheese, it was meant to be just a little fruit roll. And that one is the one with the chestnut puree, the sweetened chestnut puree. Notice that it's shrunk a lot more, isn't it? You've got a lot more sort of mottled pattern there. And that one's a bit crunchier. Again, edible, definitely not super sweet. I'd say there's not much difference in taste between that and that. It doesn't taste like a fruit, you know, like you get that really sort of tangy sweet taste with like cherry fruit levers and that. It's not like that at all, it's very mild. Actually is, you know, you don't want something super sweet if you add it with cheese anyway, so then maybe that would work like that. Maybe it wouldn't have been enough when you, you know, we're in like a weird fruit lever. Anyway, I still need to experiment and and do that properly. So I reckon I'm gonna do 8 hours, cut it down to 5, and drop the temperature to say 125 Fahrenheit or 52 Celsius, something like that, and just keep an eye on it. I went to sleep, that was the problem. Alright, on to the next one. I'm really scraping the barrel here. Got the last remains of this fruit puree, which I'm going to try and turn into a fruit cheese, so Medlar cheese. You've probably heard of Membrillo, that's the quince cheese, that's the most famous one. And I'm trying to make stuff that I would use, so fruit, jellies, jams, anything like that I don't really eat. So I've made my fruit levers, probably will eat those, and the fruit pies, but and I eat a fair amount of cheese, so this will go nicely with cheese. But the one strange thing is online there seems to be 2 different recipes. One is for equal amounts of sugar to puree, and the other is 50%. I mean, I'm inclined to eat the 50% one, but I've also heard that some of these cheeses end up a little bit soft. Well, what you really want is like a nice solid firm block of this supposed cheese to go with cheese, so cheese and cheese. Can't be better, can it? But yeah, I just don't get it. Like, all these recipes call for so much freaking sugar. I just, you know, I like sugar, but it's just too much. It's too much. Anyway, enough of the rant. Let's get on with it. So I know that's 120 grams, so another 60. So we're looking at 180. Sorry, sorry, 60 grams. 60 grams what we need to add for that one. I do have a left hand. So look at that. It's like, that's crazy. That's how much sugar is 60 grams. Bit too much. There you go, 60 grams. Look at that. That's half. Well, this is just an experiment. I do like an experiment. I'm a bit of a scientist rather than definitely not a chef. More of a scientist, food scientist. I'm just not very good at it. Okay. So we've got to put in 120 grams. Maybe that's what makes it go. I know sugar is a great preservative. I'll give it that, but Jesus Christ, look at this. It's like a snow mountain. My God, that is insane. Look at that. We're going to eat that. That ain't right, that ain't right. I'd rather just have the soft fruit cheese if I'm going to be honest. Anyway, we'll cook that up for 20 minutes. You're supposed to cook it until it sort of starts to bubble and it gets really, really thick, and then you just leave it to set. So let's get on with that. So the one on the left is the 1-to-1 and the one on the right is the 2-to-1 mixture. See, it like disappears pretty quickly. I suppose Medlars are a little bit like quinces in terms of consistency and texture and flavour almost. Right, so it actually makes it go super liquidy straight away. Right, just keep stirring those. Right, and we'll come back to you when it's starting to thicken up. Okay. I'm going to say we're pretty close now. I've got my mould ready. Just don't want it to glue itself to the pan, so I can't see. It's starting to stick already to the pan, so I think that's probably as much as we want to do. And that should, hopefully, dry out to a hard consistency. Okay, see that just moving around the pan now, so I don't think I'm going to get any more moisture out of that, so that must be ready. We'll see what that comes out like once it's cooled down, see if it makes any difference to the consistency. One thing's for sure, I'm not very happy about the level of energy, the amount of energy this has taken to process this. So this is the most important part, the actual tasting. Let's cut these open. So I believe the X, which is that one, was the more sugary one. And kind of smush that. Didn't need that bit on top, that was just the extra bit of pastry I had. So it's still quite soft in there, but that was to be expected. And same with that one. Alright, the taste test. Got a bit of cream just in case. Yeah, that is really, wow, that is really satisfying. So, well, 50% sugar in it, didn't it? You could easily eat that at a cafe. It's almost got like sort of a amaretto. Is it sort of a amaretto flavour, the sort of almond flavour? That's good. I'll go well with a cup of tea. Have a little sip. Yay! I made something vaguely edible. Okay. Now for the non-sugary one. Not unpleasant, but I mean the pastry's quite nice, butter pastry. But yeah, the filling is so mildly bland, so mildly sweet. It's bordering on bland. So I'm gonna try it one more time. Cleanse my palate. Question is, could you get away with less sugar than that? Well, you could put xylitol in it. You know, one of these non-sugar sweeteners, or honey. That's an alternative. I think that might be the way forward. What else could you add? Some other fruit, maybe apple. Mix up your apple harvest with your medlar. But considering most people's palates these days, you can go with a little bit less sugar, but not much. Yeah, that's a winner chicken dinner. Definitely. Don't even need the cream. Right, rock on. Next thing. I won't give up, will I? Right, put a bit of honey on there. I mean, you can still taste the blandness behind it. You just put quite a lot of honey on there to make that work. Next one. You're actually, I think the recipe is actually meant to put even more sugar on there. Icing sugar. Let's try that. Yeah. You have to put a lot more sugar in there. Alright, that doesn't work. So in desperation, I'm going to try and see if we can make these fruit crackers work. Doesn't have the consistency of a wheat cracker because it's too hard, but too thin rather. Not super hard, but too thin. It's not really something I'm used to, I'm going to be honest. But it's edible, pleasant enough, but I think the answer is just to make sure you do your fruit levels correct. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. So this is just pure medlar paste. Just added a bit of water I added. to get it through the sieve. I originally had it, so I dropped it down because before it went all crispy, didn't it? So I've dropped it down from 150 Fahrenheit to 125 Fahrenheit. So I was using an American machine, that's why I've switched over to that. Whatever that is, like 57 degrees Celsius or something, for 4 hours, because it's 8 hours was way too much, and I thought I'd just see how it went. It was still a bit wet at that stage, so I ran it for another hour at the same temperature. And the outside, I think the thing is you've got to spread it on pretty darn thick, because that was at least a quarter. They recommend a quarter inch. That was at least a quarter inch in the middle, but maybe been a bit thinner on the outside. So it's gone all kind of crispy again on the outside, right? Even at 5 hours. So the key bit is that bit there. Let's see what that's like. Because I think when I checked it, it wasn't too bad actually. So I want to save some of this for see how long it keeps. That's a bit hard. Doesn't taste like a normal fruit leather. What the hell? Just eat the thing. Yeah, a bit. I think maybe I should have left it 4 hours. That'd be my advice. 4 hours, 125 Fahrenheit. This is just so thin, look, and not rubbery at all. And also, if you experiment mixing it with apple, since apple makes quite a good leather, might be the pectin that helps. I did hear somebody suggest on a video to add pectin to their fruit leathers. Wasn't for Medlar, but anyway, let's see how that goes. And now the Medlar cheese taste test and cheese. So we've got cheese and cheese. This is the one that had half the amount of sugar to the weight of cheese. And what I did was, before I properly tasted it until now, I left it in the fridge just to set up as much as it possibly could, and then just so it's not completely cold, I had it out on the worktop for a little while. So let's just try it neat. You can see it's still a bit gummy. It's a bit more gummy than I would probably like, just because it's quite hard to cut. I mean, definitely tastes sweet enough. Pleasant. And that's as much as you could do with that. As you saw me cook it down. Let's try it with a bit of cheese. Probably a bit too much of that. So sweet, it's like completely dominating the cheese. Even that's probably a bit much. Let's try that. It's like eating jam with cheese, effectively. That's what it tastes like. It's very, very overpowering. And the tiniest little bit. Try that. I wouldn't want it any sweeter than that. This one has got the 1-to-1 ratio of sugar, so God help us. Right, I might have to pause and get this off. So this is more the sort of consistency that it's almost like a thick fruit leather. This is kind of more what I would expect from a fruit cheese. But let's give it a go. Bit too hard. Yeah. Almost got to chew through it. It's like a bit rubber. And very sweet. Way too sweet. So I don't like that. 1-to-1, forget that. That one, I mean, to me, even that's too sweet. But the softer you go, the more mushy it's going to get. So what do? I guess I'm just not a massive fan of fruit cheeses. I've not tried the quince one. Well, I like eating a bit of sticky toffee. It's not unpleasant, just, you know. Membrillo, what's that like? I have to buy some, see what it's like. Do a comparison. But, oh well, back to the drawing board. I think personally, I think I'll stick to chutney. I just don't like, even though I'm a sugar addict, don't like super sweet things. Chutney's the way forward. Yeah, let's try that next time. Just one final try. I took the Medlar cheese and dehydrated it for about 4 hours. It definitely looks more like leather now, so and it tastes pretty good. Well, I would say these two have sugar or apple juice. No, I mean apples. So you get some sweetness and some pectin, but can't really be done on its own. I have to say, I'm not particularly happy with the amount of sugar and the amount of energy that's been used on this. You know, the RNE is not wasted on me. If this takes tons of energy, there's absolutely no point in doing it, because you're not saving the planet. They're very efficient to produce things like this, you know, jams in factories and ship them to you, probably for less energy you could do it yourself. And if you're living off grid, it's going to be a huge part of your energy consumption. So each one of these hobs is about 1200 watts, and it was on for about 15 minutes, and I had it on about half whack, so that's probably half of, so about 600 watts these were running at, and for about 15 minutes, so that's got to be 150 watt hours just to cook that tiny little amount. May not sound like a lot, but still, you know, that if you were cooking a bigger batch, it would be a lot more power. So we need to think about that, and also the sugar, need to cut that right down. I don't even like the sugar, and I think it was sweet enough as it was, especially if you concentrate it down like this. So those are things going forward, little experiments. We'll give that a go.